The senator from Oklahoma.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Judiciary Committee be discharged from further consideration of S-75 and that the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
The senator from Connecticut.
Thank you, Madam President. Reserving the right to object, this measure essentially is a pretextual and ideological extreme step that really detracts from what should be our primary purpose at this moment in our history. Literally, we are fast approaching 450,000 deaths in this country, and people continue to die at the rate of more than 3,000 per day. Our economic progress continues to be stalled. In fact, it is declining, with joblessness increasing across Connecticut and the country. People are struggling to stay in their homes, put food on the table, pay for the medicine they need. Our goal should be making sure people have vaccines and economic support that they need. And instead, we are here on a measure that would essentially take away rights, burden rights for people, women, who need that right. We ought to be focusing our energy and attention on winning our fight against this pandemic, but instead, we're here debating a pretextual and ideological bill, another anti-choice bill, yet another attempt to restrict a woman's right to choose about when and whether to have a child. This bill purports to be about protecting individuals with Down syndrome, but it is merely a pretext for requiring health care providers to scrutinize women for their decisions to seek an abortion. The pretext is to take away those individual rights. Now, as a matter of fact, this bill has nothing to do with protecting people with Down syndrome, and it has nothing to do with addressing discrimination. If my colleague would like to genuinely help people with Down syndrome, he would ask for unanimous consent on legislation that the disability community actually has supported. The National Down Syndrome Society wants increased funding for medical research at the National Institutes of Health. It wants better educational opportunities and settings for parents with Down syndrome and people with it. It wants laws and policies that ensure economic self-sufficiency and better workplaces and the fight against discrimination. Those are the legislative priorities of this disability community. But what this bill actually does is essentially require healthcare providers to interrogate women about their decisions to seek an abortion. Healthcare providers who might violate this bill, if it ever became law, would incur fines, imprisonment, or both. So, in conclusion, people have a right to make these kinds of deeply personal decisions. Those rights are protected under our Constitution. We should be protecting people with Down syndrome, and we should be expanding their opportunities and fighting discrimination, not using them as a pretext for restricting and burdening a woman's right to choose, and therefore I object.
Objection is heard.
You know, Madam President, I asked that I be recognized.
Senator from Oklahoma.
I have a hard time with that, I say to my friend from Connecticut. Somehow protecting those with Down syndromes, you're killing those with Down syndromes. You know, right now, I'm really shocked that people would talk about protecting children. The previous speaker was from Pennsylvania, and he had a bill on child care and taking care of kids. And yet now we're talking about the fact that having a baby and diagnosing that baby is diagnosed as having Down syndrome somehow should be aborted. You know, I don't know, I can't think of how anyone could oppose this bill. You know, especially because the American people overwhelmingly, 70% of them oppose aborting a child on the basis that the child will be born with Down syndrome. Now, that includes 56% of the people who consider themselves to be pro-abortion people. 56% of the people who support abortion but oppose this on the basis of Down syndrome diagnosis. In the United States, over 2/3 of the unborn babies are diagnosed with Down syndrome, and are aborted right now. And why? Instead of receiving information, resources, and support, mothers often resort to feeling pressure to abort. Justice Clarence Thomas put it a little bit more directly. He said, and this is a quote from Justice Clarence Thomas, he said, quote, "I am deeply concerned that for babies with Down syndrome, abortion has become a tool of modern-day eugenics." That's a United Supreme Court justice. My bill would protect these innocent lives from systematic discrimination through abortion. You know, we say that we support equality in the United States, yet countless babies' lives have been stolen because of their chromosome count. So I'm surprised that my colleagues can object to this common sense bill and that they reject protecting the most vulnerable among us. And certainly those who are born with Down syndrome are among the most vulnerable among us. And I just want the people to know out there that our friends in the Down syndrome community, and there is a community, a lot of people are concerned about this, that I'm going to keep fighting for you, even though some are using any kind of excuse that I can think of to protecting these babies. With that, I won't yield the floor yet, but I'd respond to any comments from the senator from Connecticut. Hearing none, I yield the floor.